They thought I didn't hear them. They thought old ears meant a dull mind. But I did hear. Every word, every whisper, every ugly laugh. I heard the way they said, "When she's gone, we'll finally get what we want." I heard the pause, the greedy smirk that filled the silence better than words ever could. And I saw the way their eyes slid past me, not soft, not warm, but calculating. That's the truth of it. I was already dead to them long before the casket. I'm Granny Jo, and I spent 80 years feeding mouths that learned only how to bite back. I scrubbed dishes until my knuckles split, sewed Halloween costumes from scraps, slipped dollar bills into birthday cards even when my pantry shelves were bare. I sat through PTA meetings, piano recitals, football games in the rain, and every damn one of them believed that love came with a balance sheet. The older I got, the quieter the phone rang. Holidays shrank down to half-hearted texts. Visits grew shorter, colder, until the only time my doorbell rang was when they wanted a loan or a small advance, or just to remind me, with wide, hungry eyes, that my house would one day be theirs. Do you know what it feels like to be studied like real estate? To watch your family's gaze crawl over your walls, your yard, your furniture, as if you're already in the ground? It's like being erased alive. So I waited, sat silent in my armchair while they played nice for show. I memorized the way their smiles curled only when the word inheritance was near. And all the while, I carried a secret heavier than their greed. The doctor's verdict. My heart was giving out, my time was close. But death, I realized, doesn't scare me. Being used and discarded, that was the real horror. So one evening, while the cicadas screamed outside my window, I sharpened a different kind of weapon, a pen, and I wrote my revenge in ink. Line by line, I shifted every dollar, every acre, every possession, straight into the hands of the Sunny Home Foundation, a place for orphans and forgotten old folks like me. People who still knew what love meant. I didn't tell my family. Why should I? They'd already told me plenty with their absence. The day of my funeral came bright and cruel, the kind of sunshine that makes grief look like theater. They arrived in black, polished and smug, like stockholders waiting for dividends. Emily in her press suit, Jacob flashing a watch he hadn't earned, Sophia with her phone buzzing nonstop, Ethan tapping his foot like the service was a waste of his precious time. They bowed their heads, yes, but not for me. For the estate. For the house, the land, the savings they thought were carved in stone with their names on it. When the prayers ended, they crowded into the church basement, plates of stale cookies in their hands, whispering over weak coffee. I watched them from beyond, not with sorrow, not with longing, with a clarity sharper than glass. Then came the moment. My lawyer, Mr. Rollins, tall and silver-haired, cleared his throat. The murmurs died. He held a brown envelope in his hand like a judge about to deliver a sentence. They leaned forward, pupils wide, like gamblers holding their breath for the winning card. Rollins read slowly, each word hitting the room like a hammer. All property, assets, and savings belonging to Josephine Ann Carter are hereby transferred in full to the Sunny Home Foundation to be used for the care of orphaned children and elderly citizens. The silence after that was brutal. Emily's jaw dropped. Jacob's hand twitched. Sophia muttered something under her breath. Ethan went pale. They looked at each other as if the ground itself had betrayed them. But Rollins wasn't finished. He pulled out a smaller envelope, sealed with my shaky but unmistakable handwriting. The deceased left one personal note for her family. He unfolded it. My words, short and final. I leave you what you gave me. Nothing. That was the last gift I ever gave them. And the first one they couldn't spend. You could have heard a pin drop in that church basement. No hymn, no whisper, no fake sympathy left in the air, just silence so sharp it hummed in my bones. Emily was the first to break. She shot up from her chair, eyes wide, lips trembling. This is a mistake, she barked at Rollins, like he was some incompetent clerk misfiling her order at a store. Jacob muttered something low, a curse he thought no one heard, then slammed his coffee cup so hard the liquid splashed across the tablecloth. He can't do that. He can't. We're her family. Sophia clutched her phone like it was a lifeline, thumbs flying, already searching, no doubt, for loopholes, for laws, for some magic clause that would undo me. Ethan? He just sat there, white as plaster, jaw tight. He looked like a boy who'd bet every chip on one hand and lost everything. Rollins didn't flinch. He adjusted his glasses, his voice calm as stone. Mrs. Carter's will was updated 6 months ago. I oversaw it myself. It is valid, witnessed, notarized. There is no mistake. That was when Emily snapped. "You don't understand," she shouted, her voice cracking like glass. "We depended on her. That house, it's ours. She promised." "No," Rollins cut her off, sharp and cold. "She promised nothing." Their faces, I'll never forget them. Greed curdled into disbelief, disbelief into fury, and beneath it all that raw panic of people who suddenly realized they'd built their futures on air. Ethan finally found his voice. This is cruelty," he said, standing now, his hands trembling at his sides. "She knew we counted on her. She wanted to punish us." For once, he was right. But oh, how they scrambled. Jacob lunged toward Rollins, waving his hands. "There has to be something, some way to contest it. She wasn't in her right mind. She was old, sick, confused." Rollins' gaze sharpened. "Be very careful, Mr. Carter. I spoke to your grandmother at length during the drafting. Her mind was sharper than yours is now. She knew exactly what she was doing." The basement wall seemed to shrink. Their whispers grew frantic. "We can't let this stand. There's money in there, years of money. She can't just give it to strangers." They weren't mourning me. They were mourning their lost payday. I wanted to laugh, but the satisfaction was enough. After the reading, Rollins packed his papers into his worn leather case, ignoring their protests. He paused only once at the door. "Your grandmother left her affairs in perfect order. I suggest you respect her wishes." Then he left them there, 4 greedy shadows with nothing in their hands but air. For a while they just sat. Sophia's phone buzzed again and again until finally she snapped, "Shut up!" and hurled it against the wall. It cracked, screen splintering like her composure. Emily's face twisted with rage. She hated us. That's what this was. Hatred. Jacob shook his head, jaw grinding. No. She wanted to teach us something. She wanted to make a point. Well, she'll regret it. Even dead she'll regret it. We'll find a way. Ethan, quieter than the rest, muttered, "People don't just erase family like that. Not unless—" He trailed off, but the others didn't care. They were too busy feeding their fire. Outside, the church bells tolled the hour, calm and steady. Inside, my grandchildren plotted like wolves starved of a kill. I had left them nothing but the truth, and nothing, I knew, was a heavier inheritance than that. That night, after the funeral, they gathered at Emily's house, my house, once, when her mother was still alive. They didn't invite cousins, neighbors, or anyone with sense. Just themselves, the heirs.
The air was thick with anger. Jacob paced the room like a caged animal. "We can contest. Courts eat this kind of thing up. All we need to do is claim she was coerced. Some charity scammed her. We'll make it look dirty." Sophia nodded fast, eager, her fingers clutching a notepad. Yes, fraud, elder abuse, anything that sticks. Judges eat sympathy. We'll tell them she was confused. That lawyer took advantage. Ethan rubbed his temples. Even if we win, it'll take years. You know how much lawyers cost? We don't even... Emily cut him off with a glare sharp enough to slice glass. We'll find a way. I won't be humiliated like this. Grandma thought she was clever, leaving us with nothing. Fine, let's show her ghost how clever we can be. For a moment, the room went silent, the kind of silence that thickens before a storm. Then Jacob slammed his fist against the mantel. We'll drag that foundation through the mud if we have to. I don't care about her message. I want what's mine. Their voices rose, tangled with rage, fear, entitlement. Four wolves gnashing their teeth, not realizing they'd already been declawed. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of my memory, I smiled. They thought they had lost everything. They hadn't yet realized the truth. They were only at the beginning of losing. They didn't waste time. Greed never does. The very next morning, Emily was already at the county courthouse, heels clicking like gunfire against the marble floor. Jacob had found a lawyer, some slick man in a navy suit who smelled of cologne and desperation. Sophia carried folders under her arm like a secretary on caffeine, while Ethan trailed behind, pale, chewing his lip raw. They demanded answers, demanded options, demanded loopholes. The lawyer listened with that blank mask lawyers wear when they smell a paycheck. Contesting a will isn't impossible, he said, adjusting his tie, but it requires grounds, coercion, undue influence, lack of capacity. Did your grandmother show signs of confusion before she passed? Memory lapses, irrational decisions? Emily leaned forward, eyes burning. She was 84. Of course she was confused. She barely left the house. But Ethan shifted in his chair. That's not true. She was sharper than all of us. You know it. The lawyer caught that, eyes narrowing. Did she drive, pay bills, manage her own accounts? Sophia flipped open a folder with shaking hands. She balanced her checkbook every month, paid utilities online, even switched banks last year after finding better rates. She wasn't senile.
The lawyer sighed, tapping his pen. Then contesting on mental grounds will be difficult. Do you have proof of coercion? Anyone who might have pressured her to donate to this foundation? Jacob slammed his palm on the desk. It doesn't matter. That money was ours. We are her family. The lawyer didn't flinch. The court doesn't reward entitlement. It rewards evidence. That was when Emily snapped. Then we'll make evidence. The lawyer raised a brow. Careful, ma'am. Fraud cuts both ways. Silence fell heavy. Ethan shifted in his chair again, muttering, She played us. That's all there is to it. And oh, how right he was. What they didn't know was that I'd left more than a will. I'd left a trail, one they would follow thinking it led to salvation, only to find it led to a locked door with no key. Because I knew them. I knew how they'd react, how their greed would shove them straight into the trap of their own making. Weeks passed. They bickered, threatened, schemed. Sophia dug through my medical records, desperate to prove dementia. Emily demanded old neighbors testify that I was forgetful. Jacob threw money at the lawyer like gasoline on a fire. Ethan just stared out windows, hollow-eyed, like he'd finally realized what family he was part of. And then came the first crack. One chilly March morning, they received a letter, Official letterhead, Rawlins's firm. Inside, a copy of my last handwritten note to him. My script, shaky but deliberate. If my grandchildren attempt to contest this will, remind them that every check I ever wrote, every gift I ever gave, was recorded. Receipts, ledgers, bank statements. Let them see how much they've already taken. Attached were pages, copies of ledgers I'd kept for years. Meticulous, relentless. Dates, amounts, signatures. Tuition paid. Loans forgotten. Credit cards covered. Vacations bailed out. A lifetime of silent sacrifice inked in black and white. The grandkids gathered in Emily's dining room that night, pages spread across the table like crime scene photos. Sophia's voice shook. She kept everything. Jacob's face burned red. This is manipulation. She's painting us like leeches. Emily's jaw locked. She made us dependent. She wanted control.
Ethan whispered, barely audible, "No." She just wanted to be remembered. The room fell silent. For a moment, even greed couldn't argue with that. But silence doesn't last long with wolves. Emily slapped the papers into a pile. "I don't care what she wrote. We're not walking away empty-handed. That house was ours in everything but name. We fight, even if it kills us." Jacob nodded, eyes dark. "Then we dig deeper. If she wanted war, we'll give her one." They didn't realize the war had already started, and that I was winning from the grave. Because while they tore at each other, Rawlins moved swiftly. The house was transferred, accounts closed, land deeds filed under the foundation. My affairs weren't just tidy, they were bulletproof. And yet, my grandchildren kept clawing, like rats chewing at steel bars. They hired investigators, they searched through my past, they dug up neighbors, doctors, old friends, anything that might suggest I wasn't in my right mind. But what they found instead was me. Stacks of journals in neat handwriting, grocery lists beside clipped coupons, letters written to charities long before I ever changed my will, proof of a woman who had been thinking, planning, choosing, not stumbling in confusion. Every discovery stabbed them deeper. Because the more they looked, the clearer it became. I hadn't been tricked. I hadn't been manipulated. I had been deliberate. The night it truly hit them, they were all together again, arguing like dogs over scraps. Jacob waved a report from the investigator, shouting, "She left nothing, no cracks, no mistakes, just walls." Emily buried her face in her hands. "She hated us enough to erase us." But Ethan said the quiet part aloud. "No. She loved us enough to finally stop letting us use her." And with that, their fragile unity shattered. Emily swore she'd fight to her last breath. Jacob promised to bleed the charity dry in court. Sophia wanted to salvage her reputation, terrified of being branded a parasite. Ethan just stood, pale and shaking, and whispered, "Maybe we deserved it." The others turned on him like wolves smelling weakness. But he didn't back down.
And that was the first time in years anyone in that family told the truth. What they didn't know yet, what they hadn't even imagined, was that I had left them one final gift. Not money, not land, not possessions. A letter, still sealed, waiting in Rawlins' office. A letter that would tear open the one secret they thought I'd take to my grave. By April, the polite masks were gone. No more whispering at kitchen tables, no more careful voices at the lawyer's office. The gloves were off and the claws were out. Emily stormed into Rawlins' firm one gray morning, slamming her palms on his desk. "You think you can bury us? You think a piece of paper will keep us from what's ours? I'll drag your name through court if I have to." Rollins didn't flinch. He leaned back, fingers steepled, eyes cool as stone. "You may try, but every hour you fight, the foundation grows stronger. Every tantrum you throw, the courts see you for what you are." Jacob tried a different tactic. He hired a lawyer of his own, younger, hungrier, meaner. The man marched into probate court and filed a petition. Undue influence, diminished capacity, elder abuse. The judge barely skimmed it before asking one question: "Do you have proof?" The lawyer stammered. Jacob sweated. Case dismissed before it even started. Sophia panicked. She took to social media, posting cryptic notes about betrayal, about elderly relatives being manipulated by charities. She hoped for sympathy. What she got instead was ridicule. Strangers called her greedy. Commenters posted the line from my letter, "I leave you what you gave me, nothing." It spread like wildfire. Memes, jokes, even church ladies shared it with nods of approval. And Ethan? He drifted further from them all. He still showed up at meetings, still sat in corners, but his eyes were far away. Each time Emily cursed my name, each time Jacob ranted about stolen birthrights, Ethan just grew quieter, like he was slipping from their orbit entirely. Then came the letter. Rollins had waited, patient as a man sharpening a knife. He knew the exact moment to pull it out, when the family was tearing itself to shreds, when greed had bled into open hatred. It was May 2nd. He summoned them all to his office, a simple room lined with old law books and a ticking clock that seemed louder than breath. They came tense, snarling, suspicious. Rollins opened a drawer, pulled out a thick envelope sealed in wax. His Valentine's Day, which it has been.
Emily shot forward, eyes blazing. "What is it? Another insult?" Rollins slid a finger under the seal and unfolded the paper. His voice was steady, each word cutting like a blade. "To my grandchildren, I knew you would fight. I knew you would claw and scratch for what was never promised. So let me give you something no court can erase. The truth." The room stiffened. Jacob sneered. "More games." Rollins read on. "When your grandfather died, I kept more than grief. I kept a secret. This house, this land, these savings, they were never mine alone. Some of what built this family came from someone you don't know, someone you've never met. A man named Walter Pierce." Ethan frowned. "Who the hell is that?" Rollins' voice sharpened. "Walter was my first love. Before I married your grandfather, I had a child, a daughter. I was 17. My parents hushed it, hid it, sent the baby away to distant cousins out west. I married, raised a family, and carried that silence like a stone in my chest. But I never forgot. I never stopped writing her, even when the letters went unanswered. And when she died young, her children, my blood, were left behind." The grandchildren froze, their faces drained white, jaws slack. Rollins finished slowly. "Part of my estate has been set aside for them, my hidden branch of family, my true heirs." For a heartbeat, silence crushed the room. Then it exploded. Emily shrieked, "This is lies, a trick." Sophia cried, She had another family?" Jacob's face turned the color of ash. "She betrayed us." But Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "No, we betrayed her, and now she found someone worth remembering." The fallout was instant and brutal. Emily accused Rollins of forging the letter. He coolly handed her the notarized copy, my signature glowing in blue ink. Jacob demanded proof of these phantom heirs. Rollins opened another folder, birth certificates, adoption records, letters written in my hand. Sophia collapsed into her chair, head in her hands. We're nothing. We were nothing to her.
And maybe, just maybe, she was right. Because while they screamed, Rollins smiled a little. He had seen this before, families torn apart by greed. But rarely had he seen a woman strike so cleanly from the grave. That night, Emily gathered them at her house again. Rage filled the air like smoke. She destroyed us, Emily spat, dragged our name through the mud, gave everything to strangers and now to bastards we never knew existed. Jacob paced, fists clenched. We don't even know if they're real. Could be anyone. Could be some scam. Sophia muttered, real enough for the courts, real enough for the paper she left. And Ethan? He didn't argue. He just stared at them, hollow-eyed, before saying, maybe it's better this way. Maybe we don't deserve a dime. Emily turned on him like a blade. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not, Ethan said quietly. I'm just done. He stood, walked out, and didn't look back. For the first time, the family of 4 was broken into pieces, and I, from my grave, held the hammer. But this wasn't the end, not yet, because Emily and Jacob weren't finished. They wanted blood, not just money, and the more desperate they grew, the closer they came to digging up a truth they weren't ready for. Emily didn't sleep. Not the night of the letter, not the night after. Her rage was a furnace with no switch. By dawn, she was on her laptop, scouring every record she could find. Birth certificates, adoption notices, obituaries, names she'd never heard before. Every time a document confirmed what Rollins had read aloud, she clenched her jaw harder. Half-bloods, illegitimate nobodies, and she chose them over us. Jacob fueled her fire. He showed up 2 nights later, dropping a manila folder on her kitchen table. He's digging, he said. We'll find these people, and when we do, we'll bury them before they bury us. Sophia sat in the corner, pale and quiet. She didn't protest, didn't encourage, just scribbled notes with a shaking hand. It was fear, not loyalty, that kept her tethered. But Ethan didn't show. He'd stopped answering calls, stopped coming to the frantic family meetings. He'd been at Rollins's office 2 days after the letter, but not to argue. He'd asked for copies. Every page, every line in my handwriting. He read them alone, in silence, and for the first time in years, something inside him cracked. Because while the others raged about property, Ethan realized what the letter really was. Confession. And confessions don't lie. Meanwhile, Emily and Jacob sharpened their claws. They met with lawyers again, pushing new angles. These heirs can't be real. Show us proof. DNA, photos, anything. The lawyers shrugged. Proof was coming. A court date had already been scheduled for recognition of beneficiaries. Blood tests were arranged. Emily slammed her hand on the table. We'll challenge every scrap, stall, delay, drain them dry in paperwork. I don't care if it takes years. Jacob grinned, ugly and sharp. Or we go straight to the source. Find these bastards before court does. Remind them what happens when they steal what's ours. Sophia whispered, You mean threaten them? Jacob's grin didn't fade. Call it persuasion. Emily didn't object. She leaned in, her voice low. Then let's find them. But while wolves plotted, Ethan walked a different road. He drove to the old house on Maple Street, the one where I'd raised them all. The windows were dark now, curtains pulled, weeds curling in the garden I once tended every morning. He stood on the porch a long time, hand resting on the rail I had painted myself. Then he noticed something.
a small tin box tucked under the step, edges rusted, nearly hidden by dirt. Curiosity pulled him down to his knees. He pried it open with trembling hands. Inside, a stack of letters bound with twine yellowed at the edges. His name on top. He unfolded the first one, my handwriting shaky but firm.
Ethan, you were always the quiet one, the watcher. You saw more than you ever said. Maybe that's why I trusted you, even when you didn't know it. I know the others will fight, claw, curse my name, but you will wonder. You will want to know why. So I'll tell you. He read on, breath catching. I didn't cut you out to punish you. I cut you out to free you. You never begged me for money, never twisted my arm, never turned your eyes into dollar signs when you looked at me. But you also never spoke up. You let the others drown out your voice. And silence, Ethan, is its own betrayal. Still, you are the only one I believe can break this cycle. That's why I left this box for you. Inside are letters, receipts, truths the others will never see. They'll destroy themselves trying to claw back what's gone. But you can choose differently. His hands shook as he set the letter down. Beneath it were more, lists of payments, photocopies of checks, even photographs of me with the hidden daughter I'd confessed about. Proof, real proof, the kind that could end every argument in court. That night, Ethan sat in his car with the box on the passenger seat. Rain hammered the windshield. His phone buzzed nonstop. Emily calling, Jacob calling, Sophia texting, "Where are you? We need you." He ignored them all. For the first time in his life, Ethan Carter had something none of them did: power, and he didn't know what to do with it. Meanwhile, Emily and Jacob's investigator struck gold. He tracked down one of the hidden heirs, a young woman named Claire Pierce, barely 30, living 2 states over. She was a school teacher, modest apartment, nothing flashy. She'd never even met me, but the blood test confirmed she was mine. Emily's eyes gleamed when she saw the file. Good. Let's pay her a visit before Rollins parades her into court like royalty. Jacob cracked his knuckles. And we'll make sure she understands what happens when people take what doesn't belong to them, Sophia whispered. You're going to scare her. Jacob leaned close, his grin cold. Exactly. But they didn't know Ethan already had the box. They didn't know he was holding the one piece of truth that could burn them down or save them.
And the question was no longer what would Granny Jo do? The question was, what would Ethan choose? Claire Pierce lived in a second-floor walk-up above a laundromat, the kind of place where the hum of dryers never stopped, where detergent and dust mingled in the air. She had a life as simple as it was steady. Lesson plans stacked on the kitchen table, a second-hand sofa with patched cushions, plants leaning toward the single window. She had no idea 2 wolves were circling her door. Emily arrived in her pressed blazer, Jacob in his leather jacket. They looked out of place in that hallway, predators dressed for different hunts. Emily rapped on the door with sharp knuckles. Claire opened it a crack, cautious. Yes? Claire Pierce? Emily's voice was all ice. We're your family. Claire blinked. Excuse me? Jacob shoved the door wider, stepping inside without invitation. Don't play dumb. You're the charity case Grandma dug up from nowhere. The teacher, the fraud. Claire stiffened. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Emily smiled, but it was the kind of smile that belongs in courtrooms, not kitchens. We're your cousins, and you're about to ruin everything. So here's the deal. Walk away, deny the inheritance, say you never knew her. Do that, and this ends quietly. Claire's chin lifted. And if I don't? Jacob leaned close enough she could smell the beer on his breath. Then you'll wish you had. The threat hung heavy, the kind that turns a warm room cold. But Claire didn't flinch. She crossed her arms. I don't scare you. I've seen worse from middle school bullies. Jacob's jaw clenched, his hand curling into a fist. For a moment, Emily thought he'd swing. Instead, he spat on the floor, muttering, "Pathetic." Then he shoved past her and stormed down the hall. Emily lingered, her eyes hard. You have no idea what you've stepped into, but you will. She closed the door with a snap. Claire locked it twice and stood breathing hard, her pulse hammering. She didn't know it yet, but Granny Jo had expected this, and Jo had left someone else to stand between Claire and the wolves. That someone else was Ethan. Rain poured as he sat in his car miles away, the tin box on the passenger seat. Letters, receipts, proof. His grandmother's voice on every page, steady even in her last months. He opened another letter, hands trembling. Ethan, if you're reading this, the others are already at war. They'll try to crush whoever stands in their way. But listen to me. Don't become them. Don't let silence turn you into their shadow. Speak. Choose. Be more than their hunger. He pressed the paper to his chest, eyes burning. He thought about Claire, about a woman who had done nothing except be born into the wrong branch of the family tree. And now Emily and Jacob were circling her like vultures. His phone buzzed again, a message from Sophia this time. They went to see her. I couldn't stop them. Please, do something before they ruin everything. Ethan gripped the wheel. For the first time, he felt the weight of decision press down like stone. Meanwhile, Emily and Jacob regrouped in Emily's car outside Claire's building. She won't fold easy, Jacob growled, lighting a cigarette. Emily stared out the windshield, her jaw tight. Then we don't ask. We force. A smear campaign. Dig into her life. Find dirt. Everyone has some. And if she doesn't, then we make it up. By the time court convenes, she'll look like a liar unfit to inherit a dime. Jacob exhaled smoke, grinning. Now you're talking. But neither of them noticed the figure parked 2 blocks away, watching, waiting. Ethan, his hands clenched on the steering wheel, the tin box glowing in his passenger seat like a fuse ready to blow. That night, Claire sat at her kitchen table, staring at the locked door. The apartment felt smaller, darker. Her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. Claire? The voice was quiet, steady. Ethan's. My name's Ethan Carter. Jo was my grandmother. Her breath caught. So you're one of them?
No, Ethan said quickly. Not like them. I found something she left. For me. For us. I think she wanted me to protect you. Claire's voice wavered. Why? Because she knew the others would come for you. A long silence stretched across the line, filled with the hum of distant laundromat machines. Finally, Claire whispered, They already did. Ethan closed his eyes. Then it's time I finally stop being quiet. And so the stage shifted. Emily and Jacob thought they were hunting an easy target.
They didn't realize Jo had left her quietest grandson with the sharpest weapon of all, the truth. By morning, Ethan would have to decide. Expose everything in the box, burn his siblings to ash in court, or keep silent and let Claire fend for herself. Either way, the fuse was lit. The courthouse smelled of paper, polish, and nerves. Rows of wooden benches creaked as people shifted. Whispers crackled like dry leaves. Probate court wasn't usually a place for drama, but today the air pulsed with it. Emily strutted in first, heels clicking, chin high. Jacob followed, jaw tight, leather jacket slung over his shoulder like armor. Sophia trailed behind, pale and small, eyes darting anywhere but forward. Across the aisle sat Claire, simple navy dress, hair pinned back. She clutched a folder in her lap like a shield. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed steady. The judge entered, gray-haired, glasses low on his nose. He looked tired, like a man who'd seen too many families eat themselves alive over money. Rollins rose. His voice was calm, clipped. "Your Honor, we are here to affirm the validity of Mrs. Josephine Carter's will and the beneficiaries she named." Emily shot up before the judge could reply. "We contest." Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Our grandmother was not of sound mind. She was manipulated by this foundation. And these strangers," she stabbed a finger toward Claire, "are frauds. They are not family. They are opportunists." Jacob chimed in louder. "This whole thing is a scam. She didn't even know this woman. She was tricked. We demand the will be voided." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have evidence?" Emily faltered. Jacob swallowed hard. Sophia shifted, muttering something under her breath no one caught.
Rollins cleared his throat. "If I may, Your Honor." He held up a stack of documents. Mrs. Carter anticipated such claims. She left meticulous records, payments, letters, ledgers, proof not only of her soundness of mind but of her intent. These were filed months before her passing, in full compliance with the law. He set them on the desk. The judge skimmed, nodded once. "Strong documentation." Emily's face flushed. Jacob leaned forward, voice rising. "Of course she covered her tracks. That's what manipulators do. He grabbed one of the pages, shaking it in the air. "This doesn't prove anything except obsession." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Mr. Carter. You're speaking of the deceased." The room went quiet. Then, from the back, a voice. "It proves plenty." Heads turned. Ethan stood there, rain-spattered jacket clinging to his shoulders, the tin box under his arm. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with something none of them had seen before. Resolve. Emily hissed, "Where the hell have you been?" Ethan ignored her. He walked to the front, setting the box down with a heavy thud. "Your Honor, my grandmother left me this. Letters, receipts, proof of what she endured, proof of why she chose Claire." Rollins's eyes flickered with recognition. The judge leaned forward. "Proceed." Ethan opened the box, pulling out the first letter. His voice shook but grew stronger with each word. "Ethan, silence is its own betrayal. Don't let them bury truth with noise." He laid out photographs. Me holding Claire's mother as a baby, yellowed but clear. Letters between Joe and Walter Pierce, proving the bloodline. Receipts of money quietly sent to that side of the family for decades. The courtroom gasped. Even the judge looked shaken. Emily leapt to her feet. "Forgery! Lies! He's siding with her!" But the judge's gavel cracked. "Enough. These are authentic.
The handwriting, the dates, they align with the documents already on file. This is not manipulation. This is intent. Jacob's face twisted. "You traitor," he snarled at Ethan. "You're siding with outsiders against your own blood?" Ethan finally looked at him, calm and sharp. "Blood doesn't mean family. Respect does. And you never gave her any."
For the first time, Emily's voice wavered. You're destroying us." Ethan shook his head. "No, you did that yourselves. Grandma just made sure the wreckage didn't touch her anymore." The judge leaned back, voice final. "The will stands. The beneficiaries remain. This matter is settled." The gavel fell. Claire's eyes glistened with quiet tears. Rollins closed his folder with a small, satisfied nod. Emily and Jacob? They sat frozen, rage curdling into something darker. They hadn't just lost money, they'd lost the fight. And worse, they'd been exposed by one of their own. That night, Emily and Jacob didn't go home in silence. They met in Emily's kitchen, faces shadowed, words sharp. "She humiliated us," Emily spat, "in front of a judge, in front of the world." Jacob's fists clenched. "Ethan chose them over us, over his own blood. That's betrayal." Emily's eyes narrowed, gleaming with something colder than grief. "Then maybe it's time we teach him what betrayal costs." The storm hadn't ended. It was just about to break. They didn't wait long. Rage makes people reckless, and Emily and Jacob were running on nothing but rage. 2 nights after court, Ethan came home to find his porch light shattered. The boards creaked beneath his shoes as he unlocked the door. Inside, the silence was too thick, too staged. "Hello, little brother." Emily's voice. She stepped from the shadows of his living room, blazer gone, eyes wild. Jacob leaned against the wall, arms folded, a grin that had nothing human left in it. "You embarrassed us," Emily hissed. "You sided with them." Ethan kept his voice steady. "I sided with Grandma." Jacob pushed off the wall, stepping closer. "That charity doesn't deserve a dime. Claire doesn't deserve a dime. And you," he jabbed a finger into Ethan's chest, "you don't deserve to carry her name. Neither do you."
The room crackled with fury. For a second, Ethan thought Jacob might hit him, but Emily raised a hand. "No, let him speak. Let's hear what our righteous little brother thinks makes him better." Ethan met their eyes, one by one. "I'm not better. I'm just not blind. You spent years circling her like vultures. You called it love, but it was hunger. She knew it, and that's why she chose differently." Jacob snarled, "Shut up." But Ethan didn't. He walked to the table, lifted the 10 box, and pulled out one last sealed envelope. The wax cracked under his thumb. "I wasn't going to show you this, but she wanted me to use it if you came for blood. And here you are." He unfolded the paper. Joe's handwriting curved across the page, uneven but sharp. He read aloud, "Emily, Jacob, you will be angry. You will call this betrayal, but the truth is simpler. You betrayed me first. You laughed at my falls. You counted my breaths like coins in a jar. You made me feel like furniture waiting to be claimed. So here is my final gift. Clarity." Emily's lips trembled. Jacob's fists shook. Ethan continued, louder now. "By the time you read this, the foundation will already own everything, but I left more than property behind. I left records. Every cruel word, every time you mocked me, ignored me, treated me like a burden. Letters, audio recordings, even video.
I placed them in the hands of Rollins with one instruction: if you threaten Ethan, if you threaten Claire, if you contest one more time, they go public. Emily's face drained white. Jacob swore, spinning toward the door, but Ethan held the letter higher. And if they go public, you won't just lose money, you'll lose jobs, friends, reputations. The world will see exactly what kind of children you were, and there's no court in this country that can erase that kind of shame. Silence slammed the room. Emily's breath came shallow. Jacob's jaw twitched, but neither moved. Ethan lowered the letter. She knew you better than you knew yourselves. She knew rage would eat you alive, and she left the cure: humiliation, the one thing you fear more than poverty. Jacob cursed, pacing like a trapped animal. She wouldn't. She already did, Ethan said softly. Emily's shoulders sagged. For the first time, the fight drained out of her. Her voice cracked. She hated us? No. She just stopped protecting you from yourselves. They left that night without another word. The screen door slammed, their footsteps fading into the rain. Ethan stood in the quiet, the letter trembling in his hands, and for the first time, he felt the weight lift. A week later, the foundation held a small ceremony. Nothing flashy, just children, staff, a few neighbors. Claire stood by the podium, tears glistening as she spoke of a grandmother she'd never known, but who had chosen her anyway. Ethan stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, watching. He wasn't family to her by blood, not really. But when she caught his eye, she smiled, and in that smile was something Joe had left behind. Not money, not property, dignity. As for Emily and Jacob, they faded. Neighbors whispered, employers looked twice, old friends stopped calling. The threat of exposure hung over them like a storm that never passed. Every knock at the door, every unknown number, they lived in fear that Rollins had released the files. Maybe he never would. Maybe the fear itself was Joe's final punishment. One evening, Ethan sat on his porch with the tin box beside him. The sun dipped low, painting the yard gold. He opened the last page of Joe's writing, the one he hadn't yet read aloud. Ethan, you wanted to know why I did this. Because revenge isn't about anger. It's about teaching. They wanted my death to mean wealth. I wanted it to mean memory. If they learn nothing, so be it. But you still can. You still can. Ethan folded it carefully, placed it back in the box, and whispered, I will. The wind picked up, rattling the porch swing. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. And then that moment, Granny Joe's revenge was complete. She hadn't just taken everything from those who waited for her death. She had given life to those who still knew how to honor it. I leave you what you gave me, nothing. And nothing was louder than that.